And we're live. Hey guys, welcome back to the Matt Brown Show. Today I'm joined by none other than two good mates of mine who I'm proud to say have written this incredible book called We Are Still Human and Work Shouldn't Suck, and we're going to dive into why that might be. No work should suck. But it's Brad Shawkind and Andy Golding. Thanks for joining us on the show today.
Thanks for having us.
Hello, warm welcome. You guys suck today. They're in the trenches. It's like the isolated renter crowd. Cool. So thanks for being on the show. I'm just really, I see this in the media all the time. It's crazy. It's like a best-selling book. It's next to like Marnus Brittrake's 90 Rules for Entrepreneurs, which has been reprinted I don't know how many times now. But this is making big waves in the world of business. Why? You've written this thing. It's funny because you create a product, it goes out there, but you don't really know what the reception's going to be like. And obviously it's been really important. So why is this a success?
So that's a great point that you raised, because you write a book. I mean, we put blood, sweat and tears into this thing. We gave up our lives for the year last year. And 3 years of research, a year and 10 days of writing. And in our line of work, we spend our time in conversation with people. We're in the room, we're debating, we're exploring thinking. We get to defend our thinking. So we're there to argue and hypothesize, but we get to be involved. When you write a book, you put it on the shelf and you walk away. You can't stand next to every exclusive book shelf and go, let me explain to you why we wrote what we wrote. So we're still waiting for our first hater. Someone's going to come through the cracks and go, this is bullshit. But we
can nominate someone in the studio to be a heckler.
But it's exactly that. Unfortunately for us, we both had the emotional moment of spontaneously stumbling across our book for the first time in the stores on the 19th of December last year. But it's the good news is so far we've had incredible response. We've had a lot of people saying this book really needed to be written. It touches so many different points of the work experience and the human experience. And what we're finding is that we're being asked to do a lot of work with it now in creating workshops, talks, deep dive immersions into organizations who have realized that this is the thing they needed to hear. Now they've got to work out how to do it. The good news is that we also wrote a book that is not just a what. One of our big frustrations while we were writing it is so many guys write really great books and they tell you what to do. They don't give you the how. So we put as much of the how in there up to a point where they now need to pick up the phone and say, okay, we've done as much as we can, but come in here and give us a bit more help. So far so good. And they're responding to the blend of what and how. And just that it's real. We wrote a book that is a very human conversational style. It's not academic. But people can connect to it.
We didn't write a textbook.
No, it's not a textbook. It's not a textbook. And it was written, to be read in 4 ways. And that was something else that we really applied our minds to. We know there's different types of brains. So we wrote it that you can pick it up and read it cover to cover. And that makes sense to a lot of people. And that's what most have done. Then we wrote it that you could pick it up and open it up anywhere and just start reading and it would make sense. Usually what's happened, those people have started somewhere and, oh no, hold on, I need to go to the beginning and read the whole thing. Then we wrote it that for those people who just like pictures, we put some really pretty pictures inside that tell stories and they nudge the thinking. And then we wrote it for busy leaders that you can flick through the book, read the highlighted sections, and you literally can get the gist of what's going on. And then obviously you can choose to deeper dive.
Yeah, I mean, I was just paging through this book earlier. The illustrations are awesome here. They're really, really rad. It makes you kind of like this thing here with the 3, what do you call those things? You lift weights, dumbbells. Yeah. See, easy peasy, the usual, and it's a stretch. I love that stuff because it just, you land it. It's like Zapiro was on the show. It's like just telling a story in a way that resonates, and that's what's really cool about this.
And just on those images, each of those, there's an image in each of the sections, and I'm sure we'll talk about the 12 essentials. So Brad mentioned the 3 years of research that we did around employee experience and designing awesome employee experiences, and we landed at the 12 critical things that the best companies around the world are consistently and incorruptibly paying attention to. And those are the 12 essentials. The book covers each of the 12, and in each section is an illustration. So what those illustrations become essentially is a culture wall. It's the 12 essentials, just the little brain pings of these are the things we need to be constantly paying attention to.
Who the hell is Rolf? He keeps pointing zap signs at me in the book.
So Rolf is a real human. I've had a couple of people ask, is Rolf real? Rolf's 100% real. I was at an innovation conference and I was minding my business, having lunch, and this guy came over and we started talking and he introduced himself. His name was Ralph. And having this conversation, and I was saying how fascinated I was with what the information and the data and the insights that were being shared, because it was really interesting. And he was like, nah, none of this is relevant in my business. My business will never be affected by the way the world is changing. Will never ever be moved, or will never become irrelevant. And the more I tried to convince him that that's probably a deadly worldview, like that will probably sink your business, the more irate he got, the more frustrating the conversation got. And it just became so clear that he was the most shut down to new thinking individual I've ever met. I got fully frustrated in the conversation, got back to the office, said to Brad, you will never believe the conversation I've just had. I'm so irritated. And I explained to Brad what had just happened. And then we did the really mature thing. We memed him. We turned Ralph into a meme because we realized that Ralph, RALPH, conveniently stands for refusing to allow learning and progress to happen. And we would probably be meeting Ralphs throughout our journey in business. So we decided to bring him along as the villain in our story. And now we remind people always, don't be Ralph. Don't be the guy refusing to allow the learning and progress to happen.
That's bloody funny.
That's been even funnier, though, because when we do talks and workshops, we introduce Ralph. And we put him up on the screen, and he's this guy pulling this big Zap sign at you. And then we say, just by the way, are there any Ralphs in the room? As in, like, does your ID say Ralph? And we've had one or two guys who've gone, yeah, my ID says Ralph. But the question really is, are you being Ralph? Are you the person getting in the way and refusing to allow learning and progress to happen? Mm-hmm. And it's just so easy when you create a character, and people often stop and go, whoa, I'm being Ralph right now. So it just lands. But he's a really funny guy. And we've got some ideas on how to create a lot more energy and a lot more stuff around Ralph. Now we're going to have some real fun with Ralph because he's a real arsehole.
Well, it's funny that we're having this chat today of all days, because we were in Cape Town this week for this Africa Tech Week Awards thing. Yeah, we won Best Tech Startup.
Congratulations.
So,
oh, that's awesome.
But there was a chap there called Salim Ismail. But he's the founder of Singularity, and you know him.
Sure.
Obviously, you know him well. I didn't, by the way. I just used this guy up on stage, and then anyway. But he was talking all about the premise, really, which is for this book also, which is change, and how change is not exactly slowing down; it's getting faster and faster. And he describes this thing called the Gutenberg Moment, where it took 100 years for the world to fully absorb the printing press, and now we've got 20 Gutenberg moments coming, like AI and machine learning and blah, 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 and blockchain, etc. And by the way, they're all happening at the same time. So the world is by all stretches of the imagination completely fucked, because how do you remain relevant in that kind of a paradigm? Like you don't have the skills, you don't have we'll get into it. But it's just, I don't think the average business leader fully appreciates where we're going and how fast things are going to change. And going back to your Ralph point, people don't think it will happen to them.
Yeah.
True or false, eh?
So true.
Not that they don't think it will happen to them. They don't think it is already happening to them.
That's better
and they're
said.
Sitting in this state of discomfort. And we see it when we run workshops, when we do the processes we do in organization, because our work is around helping organizations, and we call ourselves a relevance bureau. And we really are about helping organizations to be relevant. And relevance means first opening up your eyes. One of the essentials is called awakeness. And that's being awake, aware to what's going on around you, switching on, tuning in, and adjusting to suit. And for a lot of people, they've done what they do the way they've done it for decades. And why why must I change? But they're sitting in extreme discomfort. And so there's almost a formula that they need, organizations and people need to start looking through, or a lens. And the one is, so our premise really is that even though the world has gone digital crazy, and the organizations who are winning in terms of advancement, and technology covers medical to energy to hardcore AI, digitization, robotics, it's all technological advancement. But the companies that are doing the best, that are winning, that are changing the world, are the ones that are attracting the best minds with the best attitudes and getting them to access their best thinking at a level that business has never invited before. So they're creating a space where human intelligence can thrive. And that's really what the book is about. It's about understanding, we are in a digital shitstorm, but it is still the human being that is doing the hardcore thinking. Just we now need to understand and there's a lot of conversation around future skills. So you can have all the best intentions around future skills, but if you don't create an environment that allows people to deliver into those capabilities, you will be disappearing off the planet.
And that's what it really comes down to is, are people being switched on and grown, or are they being switched off and depleted?
With
because
relevance.
It's one or the other.
Yeah, with relevance.
What does that imply then? I mean, if you say that to the typical business leader, I mean, what do you want him to take out of that or do as a result of that kind of statement?
So switched on and grown versus switched off and depleted. Every moment of engagement, of experience, of contact, of communication does one of two things to the human brain. The human brain either goes into a defense state, a survival mode, or it goes into a excited, contributory state. It can go one of two. And I'm not getting into the deep neuroscience, but we're doing a lot of work around the brain at the moment. And so the thing is, if you're pushing people into defense mode the whole time, if it's not a safe place, if there's no social safety, if I'm not safe to contribute my ideas, if I'm constantly concerned about what's being said about me, if all these things that create a lack of safety, then essentially what you're doing is you're getting people that are protecting themselves, their brains are shut down, and they're not able to deliver in terms of what it is you need them to deliver it. If you're creating an environment where, and I say this glibly, but it's extremely complicated to understand how to do this. If you're creating an environment where it is safe, where people feel a sense of belonging, what you do is you reduce chronic stress. And an environment where you've got reduced or minimum chronic stress is an environment in which people can innovate, think clearly, contribute, show up, have fun, and help you be a world leader in whatever it is you're trying to be a world leader in. And that was a very non-scientific brief about something that's very complicated. The model, the 12 essentials, where a lot of leaders make a mistake is they focus on people development, which is one of them. We call it people push. Or they focus on communication. We call it meaningful communication. Or they focus on recognition. And they bring fancy consultants in. They spend millions of rands on just a obsession around that one thing. What we learned as we were researching is you need to obsess about all 12 things collectively and how they interconnect to each other, because they're all impacting each other all the time. If you get that right, that wraps itself. If you look at the model, it's wrapped in a container, which is the 13th essential, which we call the force field of trust. If you create an environment where you have trust, you have a business that can win. If you have a business that does not have trust as one of its fundamental core experiences, behaviors, and values, you're in big trouble.
Andy, why did you write this book with Brad? Let's go there. Why the team? I like the team dynamic because I mean, I've just literally finished writing my book. Thank God. And
why didn't you write it with somebody?
Oh, dude. No, exactly. Are you available to? No, I'm not. Like, how did you manage? Like, get delivery of the book, and we'll get into the 12 things in a sec, but the writing dynamic.
So I think the first question, why write together? We've been on the research journey right from the beginning together. I mean, we call it a year of Saturdays, which was
4 years ago.
4 years ago now. We voluntarily every Saturday morning got together and researched this stuff, researched what we call companies behaving awesomely.
Sounds really sad.
Companies to which social life for who? Companies to which the best people want to come, do come, choose to stay, and they're shooting the lights out. And we were really curious as to what creates those conditions for success. And so we spent a year of Saturdays researching, and the research morphed into the model, morphed into a business, and it was only logical, it only made sense that we would write together. I don't think there was ever a question that we would write individually. And in terms of how we wrote, we had a plan. You know, we knew we had a recipe. First of all, we had a skeleton where we mapped out what the book would look like, what the different sections were, and then we had a recipe for each section of what needed to happen where, and what we needed to actually make it this really robust, very readable how-to guide to creating companies behaving awesomely. And we stuck to that schedule. Sometimes, we bounced around, but we stuck to, I should say that we stuck to the recipe. We didn't deviate from it. And in terms of the dynamic between us, it took us, it did take us a little bit, it took us some time to sort of figure out how do we do this together as two different human beings with two different worldviews and two very different ways of expressing ourselves. How do we create one book with one voice? And we found our magic. We both have different sweet spots in this. And as soon as we found where our magic lived and we each stayed in our lanes, we managed to write what I guess is a pretty decent book.
But they are backstories though. They are definitely backstories.
That's what I'm trying to get at.
So I'll go under the skirt. So we originally were going to, the initial nudge came from a friend and colleague who said, guys, he said to me, Brad, it's time your book gets written. You're ready, go. And Andy and I, when we met, had both been wanting to write a book. Andy had an idea she was busy with. I'd had some ideas I was busy with. But exactly as Andy said, it made sense that we took everything we had collected and did it together. So I went to her, I said, do you want to do this? And she said, yeah, let's do it. And then we decided to go the cheat route and get ourselves a ghostwriter, because that's what most of busy people do. And we went to Cape Town. We had identified somebody we wanted to work with, and she's great. But unfortunately, we weren't as important to her as having a baby was. So just after we had started, she fell pregnant. And she came to us, which was great.
Bitch.
It was great. It was just what she wanted. But she said, can we wait 9 months? And we're like, not a chance. That's just not happening. And then we tried to get one or two others, and it just didn't line up. And the one day I just said to Andy, let's just do this ourselves. And we were talking in the car now.
Let's just have a go and see what would happen.
We have no idea what we're doing. We'll work it out. How hard can it be?
It's the hardest thing ever.
Famous last words.
That's exactly what I've said. I've done hard things in my life. I've summited 3 continents. This is the hardest thing I've ever done. This took the most out of me.
I have no idea what you mean.
But then we decided to do it ourselves, and I'm really grateful we did, because the authenticity, the iteration, this will be cool, that'll be cool. It's so many layers deeper in terms of its realness, in terms of really saying what we wanted to say. And that's the experience people are having now. So yeah, I'm glad that it panned out that way. Also along the way, the first 4 or 5 sessions of writing. So we put a document in the cloud. Our book lived in Google Drive, and then Andy and I would sit. Literally almost the entire book was written in coffee shops. So we drank a lot of coffee and
written weeknights and weekends.
Weeknights and weekends for a year. So no lives. Andy made the comment the other day. Somebody said to her she would have been a really shitty girlfriend during that year for whoever might have come along. But the first 4 or 5 sessions, it was minutes before we were boxing, because Andy was typing something and I was making changes. He's like, just wait. And
we had a counter for a while that was hours without fights.
Yeah. And eventually we just said, okay, you tell me like what's pissing me off about you. I'll tell you what's pissing you off about me. And we call each other out and we stop it before we go there. And but that's also framed our business partnership. Because this thing accidentally created a business. We accidentally did some research together. We were, Don Packett. Yep. So Don was the one who originally reintroduced us, because Andy we had worked together on a project that I had done for the Missing Link. And I
used to work at Missing Link.
Yeah. So. And Don said, you two need to talk. And You Two Need to Talk became the year of Saturdays. And then we had a magic moment about the name Still Human as a company name, because I had been invited to talk at a learning conference, and I wanted to share the model with the world. And I said to Andy, well, it's ours, so you come stand on stage with me and let's do it together, which for me is the worst thing ever. I hate tag team talks because...
And it was the first time we'd ever been on stage together. Yeah. And we were like, hey, let's have a go. What the hell? We'll just tag team a talk.
And I'm a freestyler.
Never done
when
before.
I get up there, I go wherever I go. Andy's very organized in her content, waiting for her cue. And so we got 2 different speaking styles. And then the tech didn't work. The comfort monitors were not working. So we had a laptop in front of us that we were trying to move through ourselves. It wasn't driving the screen behind us, but we wanted to see our speaker notes because we had never done a talk together. And there was a moment in the talk where we were going to call our business Essentials. We decided to do a business together. And the model is called the Essentials model. So very innovatively called it Essentials. And in the talk, there was this very emotive moment. And I said, because we are still human. And the room went like, and my semi-hair is standing up on end. and I said to Andy afterwards, we have to register the name Still Human. And then the book became Still Human. And that's just, but yeah, we had to work out our ways of working along the way. But if we're a company specializing in creating awesome experiences for human beings inside work environments, well, we got to walk our talk. So even though we're an interesting business in terms of the moving parts of our business, but we have to obsess about the culture and the experience we create for ourselves, because else we're not authentic. Who's going to believe us and buy us if we look like we're having a shitty time?
Absolutely. I love that. And also I love the name, Still Human, even
Awesome.
as a business, because it's the exact opposite of what everyone else is talking about. So it's different. So there's exponential value in being different. That's just my belief. So where do we want to go from here? So we touched on the world's changing. That's pretty much the premise, right? So how do you essentially build a relevant business that creates exceptional experiences for human beings in a world that's gone digital crazy? That's the premise. Where do we go from here? So you mentioned these 12 principles, right? Are they
12
principles?
essentials.
Essentials.
Yeah.
Sorry, my bad. Okay, the essential principles of. But these 12 essentials, why do they exist? What are they there for?
So after what the Year of Saturdays told us, so when we went on this research mission, we were actually looking for 5. We were looking for the top 5 things that the best companies to work for around the world do to consistently and incorruptibly create awesome experiences for the human beings in those businesses. And much research led us to 12. And when we landed at 12, we realized that we couldn't actually, there was no more wiggle room. Those are the 12 where whichever way you sliced it, when you look at what creates companies behaving awesomely, places where human beings are being switched on and grown, those 12 are interplaying together. And the 12 are things like meaningful communication, knowledge flow, trust, as Brad mentioned, being our 13th, that encapsulates everything, recognition, stoke, creating wow moments. Because if you think about it, experience is actually nothing but a collection of moments. So how do we create that? How do we create the moments of experience people have in our businesses, from before they apply for the job to what in the recruiting process, the hiring process, onboarding, engage, perform, develop? How are we creating wow moments throughout that entire journey with this human being, all the way through to goodbyes? The art of goodbyes, because it's not necessary to burn bridges, unless, of course, there's been foul play. But so those 12 essentials really underpin what creates awesome experience for human beings. And I think why we're so excited and maybe a little bit healthily obsessed with employee experience is so many companies pay so much attention to engagement. They measure employee engagement. And it's cool, but when you're doing an engagement survey, all it's going to tell you is what you already know. People are disengaged. It's not going to tell you what's causing the disengagement. Where is the experience broken? So if you think of 3 concentric circles, the innermost circle is your culture, the second circle is experience, and the third circle is engagement. So your culture is what people live every single day. That creates the experience that they have, and the experience that they have then creates levels of engagement. So if that experience is positive, engagement will be high. If that experience is negative, engagement will be low. So by focusing on engagement, you're kind of skipping a step in the process of what's actually going wrong. What is it mission critical that we focus on? What are our vulnerabilities? Yeah.
There's loads of hype around customer experience. And what's really interesting about your take on this whole thing is that it's internal as much as it is external. It's not just, they're not mutually exclusive either. So I think culture is critical. I love the fact that you're addressing culture, but can you give us a practical real world example of what a great employee experience looks like? Because I don't know what your views are, but just, having consulted with many businesses, it's not even being discussed. If at all. It's only in your big corporates, where there's significant number of employees that it starts to become a thing.
Yeah.
So what does it look like? What does success look like in the customer experience space?
Customer or employee?
Employee experience, yeah.
So when, we're talking about the essentials, the moving parts, the focusing on them is kind of ticking a box, running a process that focuses on recognition or communication, or what a lot of organizations do, what a lot of HR, we piss off HR practitioners because it's becoming very uncomfortable because the world is changing. HR for a long time, and I can see I'll get a social media backlash on this, HR for a long time has been, we've taken one person, we've tried to make them the expert in all things HR admin. So all the contracts, the contracting, the legals, the disciplinaries, but then we're also trying to make them experts in employee experience. So the same person who kicks your backside because someone tells them to, because the leader says that person's out of line, meantime the leader's probably out of line, is the same person who then has to come and try and create a great experience for you. There's a disconnect there. We've created a new qualification and it's a focus on employee experience called the Employee Experience Orchestrator. And when I say we've created it, we didn't invent it. It's going on a lot overseas. It's become a person.
Well, the position exists overseas.
The position exists overseas. We've created a different way that it happens. We've got this person sitting above the exco, next to the CEO, direct line to the CEO, with authority over the exco in terms of employee experience. Because often the exco are the Ralphs. Exco are the ones who don't want to change, comfort, building their empires, and now they're being told you need to show up differently. Because the thing is, if leadership doesn't show up displaying a certain mindset, behavior, attitude, values construct, the entire business is screwed. Because people look up at that and say, well, that's what got them to be successful. That's how I'll behave. But if it's bad, you have a problem. So you asked about a great employee experience, an organization that understands these moving parts, but then weaves them in incorruptibly into the codification of the culture, all the language around the values, the mission, the vision, that again is a tick box exercise. But if you don't get it right, you've got no backbone. And then decision making, there's no lens for that. Behavior, there's no lens for that. Leadership, there's no lens for that. So we've built another model which designs all of the moving parts that creates that the leadership is actually the container. So to any leaders who are listening to this, this is your gig. It's not to be leaving it for other people, because culture creates itself either in spite of you or because of you. And if you hear those words, in spite of you or because of you, you really want it to be because of you.
In the best way possible.
In the best way possible. Yeah, exactly. In the best way possible. Because then what starts to happen is in that employee experience environment, what you've got is, Andy spoke about people leaving. No one, if you design a business that attracts the best people, gets them to shoot the lights out while they're there. And so a great employee experience, shooting the lights out, means exactly what I was saying earlier. I feel safe to bring the best version of me, knowing that I am not at risk here in any way. I can show up, I can communicate, I can bring my ideas, and I'm safe. Yeah, sure, if I keep making the same screw up day in, day out, well, then I'm being an idiot. So I'm now not creating the right environment for my colleagues. But what it does is, if you've got an environment where people are invited to participate to that level of contribution, you are going to have an incredible customer experience. But it all starts inside. I mean, the book is full of stories about the different moving parts of different organizational constructs that you can see what the company was creating as an internal way of behaving, talking, thinking was definitely creating a ripple effect in terms of what the customer was experiencing. And it's so, and it doesn't have to be massive change. That's what, a lot of leaders think this is going to be a huge overhaul. Often they can't even see what needs to be overhauled, because we run an assessment called an MRI. You can see we're not passionate about this at all. We run an assessment called an MRI, and what we do is we deep dive into understanding the experience against the essentials model that people in the organization are having. What we do is we also then assess the leaders in terms of what the experience is that they are having. And they assume that the experience they are having is the same as the experience other people are having. Because why would there not be? And we overlay. And so far, with many organizations in many different sectors and many different sizes, we haven't yet had a feedback session where we've put the feedback up on the screen, and we haven't had them go, holy shit, is that the situation? How are we seeing it so differently? But we're seeing it so differently as leaders because we're designing it to be cool for us. But what about it being cool for them? And real stuff that is impacting people deeply. Now, people who are having a deeply negative emotional experience about lots of the moving parts at work or not having a great employee experience cannot show up. They can't bring you the best of themselves. And then you want to know why your company is not performing the way it can. And then you want to know why you're spending so much time in discipline. And the HR person is now becoming the disciplinarian instead of being able to have a focus on experience. Although it's a different speciality again, but we need to have those because we've got to discipline, not create experience. The focus is all wrong.
And I think on that, so when people are completely disengaged, they're just showing up as zombies. They've probably checked out psychologically. The worst case is they check out psychologically, or they check out physically and they actually leave. But when you've got checked out individuals showing up every single day, they really couldn't care about the experience your customers are having. because they're showing up to do nothing but the bare minimum that they need to get that salary, because all that they are receiving back is the bare minimum.
So it really is inside out rather than
Completely,
anything else, eh?
Yeah,
Completely.
very much so. So employee experience and customer experience are two sides of the same coin. Your employee experience directly translates to and creates customer experience. And it's exponential. You know, if we tell there's one story in the book about one day only. And if anybody receives the one day only emailer, it's hilarious. The copy that is written is really, really funny. And
do you know it, Alexis?
They reach a database of, I think it's half or a quarter of a million people. And every single day, the people opening that email are getting a good chuckle. And as a result, they're more likely to look at the products, more likely to buy something. There's one guy writing the copy. It's a copywriting team of one. And he's been given license to have fun and make magic. So him having fun, him having that great employee experience ends up creating stoke for half to a quarter to half a million people. You know, so it becomes exponential. Now imagine if he was just writing the blandest of bland copy every single day. Most of us, I open that emailer every single day because I know I'm going to get a chuckle out of it.
Chris, do you want a brief? New brief. Do whatever you want on email. There you go.
Pleasure.
Can't wait to see the results.
Matt's shitting himself a little bit.
But whatever you do, don't publish it unless you run it past me first. All right, cool. Let's do quote of the day. Cool. So walk us through this one.
So zero drama, maximum magic has been a kind of a life ethos for me for a long time. And what it says is I don't do drama. We should always be moving towards magic. Now there's stuff around us. There's drama, there's stuff happens, there's always some complexity, but some people like to dwell in the drama. And for us, it's very simply always be moving towards the magic. Identify what magic is in a situation, in a context, whatever it might be, and always be moving towards it. So we wrote in the book a little excerpt about zero drama, maximum magic. What we do is we bring it into a lot of our talks, a lot of our workshops, because people go straight into the drama. And if we say, okay, two sides of the page, write the drama, write the magic, now let's get moving. And it's amazing how many people they want to hold on to that drama. They want to understand why and what. Nothing changes sitting in the drama. You can learn what's the detail, what's information, let's move. So we use it as very quickly to identify where are we at any given time and how do we move. And it keeps us moving forward the whole time. And it's just 4 very simple words. But what it also is a great lens for the types of people that we don't want to go near. Because drama has a look and a sound and straight away we're like, nah, we're just not going there. And it's amazing when you have a boundary. Boundaries are really important. When you have incorruptibility around certain boundaries, your entire world looks different. And in the workplace, that's why we emphasize that as well. We're teaching a lot of teams and leadership teams who dwell there how to move towards the light, just keep moving towards the light. And they struggle because it's so much. When you dwell in the drama, often you're avoiding accountability. And when you look at the drama, there's an accountability there. It often requires somebody to get off their arse and do something meaningful to move towards whatever the magic is. But what we see in the world of business is people, we often talk about the difference between business and sport. And we ask people, what's the difference? And they sport is a business. The thing is that in sport, at the high levels of sport specifically, if you make a mistake, the scrutiny is high, the spotlight is on you. You know what your role is. In business, it's always fuzzy because again, clarity means accountability. Winning is winning and losing is losing in sport. In business, we shift the results around to suit us. Deadlines. In sport, the clock is the clock. In business, a deadline is never a deadline, it seems. And so we see people hiding in dark corners all over the place in business. And what we're looking to do is to remove that fuzziness because a lot of our work involves a lot of language, a lot of specificity. I think we probably say more than anything else, what does that mean? Because we've become experts at semi-English. So we use words that don't mean that much, which means we're not accountable. And it drives people crazy when we say, so tell me what that means. And they can't because their brain won't let them because clarity means accountability. And again, all of that lives in that drama space. The magic is where you have clarity, you have intention, positive intention, And again, it's when you're talking about building an organization, if you were just to take the word magic and describe all the things that make your business, and what does magic look like in all of those areas of activity, of engagement, or whatever it might be. What is, as I look around here, I mean, as an ex-architect, I always look at space. So I walked in here, it's one room, but I think it's magic. You've done the small things that make what could be a really shitty work environment into a really cool work environment. That's magic. And I mean, do you guys dig working here? Yeah, totally. And it's those little things.
Thanks, guys.
That people.
Everyone gets paid this month.
But they would say that, right? Because they're not going to lie to me.
Well, I tell you this.
Not to my face.
From the survey work and the assessments we do, they say so we've got in our process, we build trust. So we just don't go in as blind strangers and try and extract information. We spend quite a bit of time humaning with the company, at factory levels, at all sorts of different types of businesses. And once they've established trust with us, the things they tell us are insane. And they're the type of things that leaders really need to know.
Are they saying these kind of like very sensitive things to you with the leaders in the room, or is it anonymous?
Not with the leaders in the room.
Okay.
It's in a very, very confidential setting.
And we've established enough trust, they'll share that with us because they get that the project we're there to do. So we always frame our project with, we're here to create that XYZ is an even better place to work. Not a better place, because we don't know how shitty or how good it is. So we're always going with even better. So we're not knocking them. And that's the context for the work that we do. And once they understand that this is about them and about their benefit, boy, do they open up. And we create a context as well where they've got a direct line to us. So even though we've got formal assessment processes, we haven't run a project yet where we haven't had people phoning and saying, I need to have a conversation with you separately. They didn't want to talk in front of their group or their team, or there was stuff that our digital assessment didn't cover. And so I just want to share some stuff with you. And it's not always bad. We also have sometimes where they'll phone and say, this is some amazing stuff. I want you to be aware of it because we need to do more of it, which is amazing. But I want to connect a dot to innovation, because while this obsession is employee experience and is critical to the livelihood of a business, because that human capital is a massive asset. We don't believe it's your biggest asset. We believe the culture is the biggest asset, because people come and go. The culture is the constant that they come into. So it's got to sustain itself. But that important piece of research, when we saw the obvious links between those 12 essentials and employee experience and what they do in terms of innovation capability, employees and people who don't feel safe, who are not communicating properly, who are all those essentials, and we can go into them in detail, they are incapable of innovating. Organizations are pushing for better thinking, more responsiveness, more awareness, but nobody is able to deliver because their brains have actually been shut down. So it's not about box ticking. It's about understanding the fundamentals of what actually enables a person to give you what you're looking for as a shareholder, as a leader, as a CEO. And when you understand that you are physiologically making people incapable of thinking the way you want them to think, that's when the game changes. One of the essentials is innovation with intent. And we've moved past just the theme of innovation, because innovation is just ideation. It's just creativity, coming up with stuff. With intent means we're creating mechanisms where we're going to experiment with the ideas. We're going to test them. We're going to iterate. If they bomb, they bomb. What have we learned? But if you don't have the intent, what happens a lot is people are coming up with ideas, but their ideas go nowhere. There's no platform. There's no channel. So what happens is, they go, hey, why must I think hard? Why must I give you an idea if you don't do anything with it? So that intent is so critical. And and we see so often in big businesses and medium-sized businesses, they're saying to people, come up with ideas. They don't do anything with them.
Well, they can't. They're not motivated or incentivized to do anything with
exactly.
them.
Switched off people can't innovate.
Well, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's like, but I love this. So I want to dive into this whole thing, because for me, human is about meaning above many other things. And trust is important, and doing things with intent, choosing your words right, developing, building a culture internally within yourself as an individual, and then expressing that and speaking your truth and authenticity. Like, these are all fundamental essentials.
Nailed it.
of being human. How do you as a consultant, hat on, with your consultant hats on, if you're dealing with the CEO of an investment bank, for argument's sake, who's really battling to build a culture, right? And, this is I'm using, not all investment banks are the same, obviously, but, for this example, we'll assume that they're all guilty.
And they are. We're working with most of them.
Are you?
Yeah.
Okay, well then there you go. Boo. Okay, but anyway, meaning. How do you instill meaning in a team of thousands of people?
I think our first question to that CEO would be, what is the purpose? Why do you exist? And 99.99999% of the time, there is no clarity or clear articulation around that. And then the answer to the next question is obvious. Do the people showing up here every single day know what they're showing up here to contribute into? Because what ends up happening is the reason so many of these organizations have silos and it's sort of every business unit for themselves, instead of working together, we're working against each other almost, because we set KPIs, we set business targets, which are so numbers driven, hit the numbers, but nobody's aware of the bigger picture. What are we all showing up here to do every single day? So Google, as an example, we exist to make the world's information searchable. You know very clearly when you show up, no matter where in the company you work, this is what I'm showing up to contribute into. To the guys in the department next door me or the next business unit, understand that we are all trying to achieve the same objective. We do quite an interesting exercise where we get rooms full of people, hundreds and thousands of people, to stand up, and we say, okay, guys, everybody stand up. Close your eyes, raise your right arm. And now these are people from one organization. We say, right, now point north. And invariably some chaos ensues and people are whacking each other a little bit. And once everybody's decided where they're pointing to, we say, okay, leave your arms there and now look around the room. And it's chaos. Everybody's north looks a little bit different.
Or very different.
And we say, so if we're all in the same organization and we say we're showing up, we're all moving north. But if your north, my north, and Brad's north look completely different, the boat is in a tailspin. We're rowing the boat in a circle. So if we don't have clarity on what does north look like for all of us, and how do you as one department, me as the other department, and you as the other department, how do we work together? How do we need each other? And how do each of us individually contribute towards achieving that objective?
But this is also why the essential is called shared purpose. And so the critical thing is, as the CEO, what is the story you're telling about your business? What is the story that everybody can understand and connect to? No matter what it is they do, that they understand how they fit into that bigger picture. And how does that shared purpose and that story travel through the business in terms of all the elements of the codification of the culture? And again, this is where it breaks down, because we take executive C-suites, exco teams, and we take them away to wherever it is that they love to do and go their workshops. It's usually off-site and fancy catering, and we say this with a smile on our face because it's really important to get off-site. But the critical thing is, what's the quality of the conversation when you come back to the office? How do you distribute that story? And we'll take an executive team of say 8 or 9 people, and we break them up into 2s or 3s, and we say, go to a different corner of the room, and there's your flip chart, and now write out as well as you can, articulate the purpose of this organization, Mr. Leader, Mrs. Leader. And then we take those 3 or 4 flip charts, and we put them back in the middle of the room. And they might as well be Chinese, Greek, Cyrillic and Russian, that they're so far apart from each other. Now, how are you connecting your minds and your hearts as the senior leadership team of a business if between you couldn't get close to articulating the story of this business and what makes it matter? What's the thing people can connect to? And that then starts off interesting conversation. We usually find ourselves back for weeks and weeks and weeks at those offsite venues. But what we then encourage is that they bring more people along on the journey. The next level of leadership needs to be participant to that, because going back to the mothership after a weekend away or whatever the case might be and pushing stuff on people doesn't work. People need to be participant. And there are a lot of great minds that are not included in these stories who actually are even closer to the story than the C-suite. And it really is time that the C-suite and executives, they've got a critical job to do in terms of holding culture, driving business, articulating experience. But it's so important that they start to embrace the intelligence of the 1 or 2 or 3 or 5 or 8 levels below them. It's an old constructive business that the intelligence is at the top of the tree.
I think just on that, in terms of getting people involved, we did such an interesting exercise where we did exactly the exercise Brad just explained. At a breakaway, we got the execs to articulate their individual purposes.
Can you do something with them now? Is there any like little hack that you can do just to see if they're all on the same page? Because if they're not, they're gone.
Well, now I've already given away the gag with the...
But here's my point exactly. Is the clever exec making it everyone else's problem.
So here's what we'll do. I'll explain. So what we did with this organization is we got the exec. So you're going to give us an idea. So, okay, Matt, what is the shared purpose of this organization?
Shared purpose? No idea. I'm really battling with that.
What do you exist to achieve?
Survival.
What makes digital Kungfu matter?
No, we're here to enable technology businesses to grow through storytelling and lead generation.
So we're here to enable
technology
businesses to grow through storytelling and lead generation. What might you guys add to tweak, or if you like just ponder on that for a second? What do you think might need tweaking? What might be missing? And this is the exercise that we did in this organization. Is we got the execs to articulate it, and then we stuck it up in the cafeteria on a whiteboard, and we left markers there, and we said, "Have a go. Make your suggestions and adjustments."
We should do that, Alexis. Can you make that a thing?
The Microsoft Azure data centers have landed. But how secure is it?
It is very secure. I always tell people you should trust the Azure cloud as much as you trust the bank with your money.
What's up, guys?
Yep.
Hey, Chris.
That's very loud. I'm going to stand this far away from the mic. Thanks for joining us. No, it's not necessarily something that's missing. I do think it's something that we should emphasize. That not a lot of agencies will
We're not an agency.
Chase lead generation.
Don't be Ralph.
Sorry, no.
So that we got to clarify. What are we?
We're a storytelling production company that specializes in lead generation for technology businesses.
See, you're on the same page.
You see, I learned. I think it's something that we should emphasize, that we do the best of both worlds, right? So we create this awesome branded content, but then we also have this very strong lead generation focus. And I don't think a lot of people are offering that. So I think it's not something that's missing, but something we should really take home. I think that's our shoots out the lights aspect of our company. Yeah.
Cool. So please feel free to write on that board. What else can we do to help galvanize that practically?
So once you get clarity on it, it needs to become your litmus test for do we or don't we do anything, and for how you show up. So Southwest Airlines exists to create cheap, reliable, and low cost. No, what's it? Quality. It's reliable, affordable, fast, reliable, and affordable air travel. So when they wanted to introduce salads onto the airline, doesn't make us faster? No. Doesn't make us cheaper? No. Doesn't make us more reliable? No. So we don't do it. So that becomes your litmus test for every single thing that you do.
Wasn't there an employee that actually came to the CEO with that idea and said, what was it? It was something
Chicken Caesar
it would
salads.
and they would save money or something like that. And it was like, but is it going to make us faster?
Yeah.
And he was like, bin idea.
Yeah.
And it's just really important to have those lenses. There's the famous NASA story. 1969, President Kennedy went to NASA, and the first person he encountered was the janitor. And he said to the janitor, so what is it that you do here? And the janitor said to him, I'm helping to put a man on the moon. Everybody was single-mindedly focused on putting a man on the moon. And then they could find meaning inside their own role. So for this janitor, he was all about health and safety, hygiene, all of that mattered. Not, I'm cleaning toilets. So again, it's how do you find your connection, no matter what your role is, to the story. But the story's got to be on point.
But there's such a huge breakdown, though, in interpretation and I suppose going back to your point around having a shared purpose, because if you look at a workforce that's going to be largely made up of millennials who quite frankly don't want to build your dream, they want to build their own. Like young Trevor over here wants to be an MC, so I try and an entertainer. So I try and give him as much conference stuff as possible, just so he can do both. You know what I mean? But it's a very real thing, because I can tell you now that he wants, if he had to choose, if you pushed him into a corner and said, choose, do work for Digital Kungfu, work for yourself.
Yeah.
in other words, just do this vocation that he has. I mean, the guy's like, he's like designed by like a higher power to do that thing. Where is Trevor? Give him a mic. Is he on the phone? You see. But you can see he's just built to be an entertainer. So I know that that's most likely the thing that he'll wind up doing. But now I'm here going, well, we exist to, enable technology businesses to grow through content, what have you. He doesn't really give a shit. Do you know what I mean? Deep down, he doesn't really care. So how do you as a leader then ensure that, because for me, it's about communication, right?
Yeah.
And embodying the vision every day in the way that you show up, in the way that you communicate it, in the way that you say no to doing lead gen for automotive brands. Do you know what I'm saying? Because it's your point around the Delta Airlines example. It's not part of what we do. So you're out. I do that actively.
Yeah.
But for many leaders, they either don't do it or they're not able to communicate that in such a way that people go, you know what, actually I can put that MC gig on hold.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying?
And also it's that how do you connect people to it? What is my role? It's about that galvanizing. How do we really galvanize people to, quite frankly, give a shit? And that's another one of the essentials is gas. Give a shit, which we from my time at Missing Link, something that we learned quite heavily about there. And just our company and our colleagues care about us, and we care about our company and our colleagues. And Trevor might not be here forever, but there is a way to optimize Trevor's experience and your contribution that you get while Trevor is here, and at the same time grow him. So you create that when Trevor leaves, you have a brand ambassador for life. So a good goodbye. So you guys might both be stepping stones in each other's journeys, and that's not a bad thing at all.
So there's another element to it, and on top of what Andy has said, there's this, and I don't agree with it, that story that says you should find your passion and then go and build a career in it. Like 1% or 0.5% of the planet actually is able to get that right. Most of them are sports stars and rock stars, and then there's also a premise that says, well, but work generally sucks. So why not take your passion, put it into a place that sucks, and make your passion suck? Keep your passion, and let work be work. And again, everybody looks differently at these things, but as leaders and as people in the point of the book is that it's not only leadership's job to create that work is awesome. It's everybody's job. Every single one of us, every single one of you creates moments of engagement all day long. Think about how many touch points there are, how many words that are uttered, how many nuances of behavior, body language, whatever it might be, recognition, acknowledgement, communication. There are thousands just in one day here that creates the energy, the mood, the tone that everybody leaves here when they go home with, wakes up tomorrow morning to come back into. And so it's all of our job to create that work is awesome. Whether we're doing the thing we love to do or not, whether it's our deep passion, we all have a responsibility, including leadership, to create that we can all have an amazing time here doing the thing that we're doing all day long, spending the bulk of our waking time together. Where leaders have a more critical role is in the articulation of that story, the consistency of that story. Because if you keep on watering it down, diluting it, chopping and changing, well, how does anybody know what to bolt themselves onto? And that really is a function of leadership. But then the function of everybody else is to retain that story, keep telling that story. We keep getting told, Andy and I, that we sound the same when we speak. Well, and we're two very different human beings. But
you look exactly the same.
No.
That's
are you looking at me or
only a
Andy?
little
I'm
bit
not sure.
offensive.
What do you say? I'm not pretty.
Ooh. Can of worms.
So, and it's because even though we've got two very different mindsets, two very different skill sets and capability sets, two very different life journeys and experiences on how we got to this point, our story is so succinct and consistent in terms of what we do, what our business is about, and where we impact. And when we deviate from that, we deviate together, we articulate and re-articulate together, because it makes it very easy for people to associate to it, to attach to it, and to be okay with it.
You keep saying story, and I love that, because it is actually about that. I mean, I genuinely believe the only reason why we won that Best Tech Startup Award was because our story was the best.
Yeah, sure.
It's, like, by all accounts, there were better platform startups in that mix. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But we still won because the story was, well, these guys are definitely the best, you know? And so that's just one context. But this whole notion of story and being able to bring to life and activate a premise or a purpose is the game. Do you know what I mean? And most businesses, they go, what's our purpose? What's our mission statement? You know,
what's our strategic bottom line objective?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And then what happens with that? It sits on a PowerPoint deck at an expensive strategy agency or some shit like that.
Yeah.
And it never gets activated.
Yeah. Or it sits on the wall in reception in these fancy laser cut letters. And the only person who ever has anything to do with them is the poor soul who needs to clean them.
Yeah. And when you ask the CEO if he can list them or she can list them in those offsite strategy sessions, they can't.
Really?
Yep.
That's disgraceful.
Yep.
Eh?
We don't pre-prepare the executive team. Although now if they're listening to us, they'll all come well-oiled, able to rehearse and regurgitate in Chinese, Russian, Greek. But we don't tell them what we're going to do with them. And one of the first things we do when we're doing those purpose sessions is we say, cool, write it up. And they can't. They can't.
It's unbelievable, hey?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
What are some practical things that startups like us and, you know, other companies of all kinds of sizes practically, you know, like what do you advise your clients, for instance? I mean, I know it's probably different for every business. Every business is unique after all. But what are some holistic, you know, practical things that leaders can do? So like, for instance, in this case, use us by all means, like take us to pieces. But practically, like, what could I do to help bring that vision of or that purpose to life here a bit more?
So not to take a shameless punt or anything, but there's this book that was written recently, and it's a how-to guide for building great businesses and exceptional
I heard it was
employee
much more than what
experiences.
it gives you the how.
Yeah, it's very much a how-to guide. So I might recommend starting there. But then just to go to where you first started with startups is we always say start as if you're 1,000 big. So often what happens is when a business is in survival stages, very early stages where we just need to make the money, culture goes out the window. We pay no attention to it. Right in the beginning, you know, these are your cultural co-founders, because as this business grows and scales, these are the people who are going to be bringing other people on, and they're going to be more hands-on more hands-on with the new recruits than you might be. And so start as if you're 1,000 big. Start, get that purpose articulated, make it your litmus test for everything you do day in and day out, and bring your cultural co-founders on that journey with you in getting the foundation for the experience that you want people to have in this organization, how you want to show up as a leader, and how you want your cultural co-founders to show up as leaders and as colleagues. Get that right and be completely and utterly unfuckwithable about it.
But then what's more important around that is
word of the day. Unfuckwithable.
We have a very funny moment around that. When we wrote the book, so there are in each of the sections there's the unf-withable, which is the unfiddle-withables. But in the first draft, it had everywhere was unfuckwithables. And we sent it out. So Graham Codrington wrote the foreword. And it was a huge privilege for us to have Graham write it. You know, he's a friend and a colleague, but he's also somebody we've admired for many years as a world authority in the world of work and the future. And when we asked him randomly over one breakfast, we said to him, would you write the foreword? We're writing a book, and he was like, good luck with that. He says, you don't know what you're in for. And then eventually, when it was almost finished, we mailed him. We said, remember you said, we said to him, maybe you'll write the foreword one day. And we mailed him. We said, we said, maybe you'll write the foreword. And he said, yeah. He said, well, send me something that I can read, and if I like what I'm reading, then I'll consider it. And we sent him the draft that had a lot of F-bombs. And then we had like a moment of, we actually don't want to write that book. We don't want to limit, piss people off, isolate, ostracize. So we removed all the F-bombs from the book.
So we like, these fucking corporates, blah, blah, we're like that?
No. There was more the unfuckwithables, and there was some language. And we thought we don't want that to limit ourselves. So we sent Graham, a couple of days later, we sent him the revised cleaned up version. And we said, just this one, rather read this one. And he said, I will read this one, but I'm definitely keeping the other one for my archive. It's special. And he even references that in his foreword. It's like, I don't know whether it's a good thing or a bad thing that they took them out. I'm not so sure. But the point I was going to make was, if you're going to do that exercise and articulate your purpose, the values, the mission, the vision. Like I said, a lot of organizations do this as a tick box exercise. We got it covered. Okay, cool. But if you don't get it right, it has absolutely no value. If you do get it right, it is the most valuable thing you can do. Because what you've got to then do is, I've used the word codify a few times. You've got to bring it into visual language. You actually need to articulate whether they are infographics or whatever your mechanism is for that being very clear and easy to understand. But then you've got to actually work with it. You need to pull, for example, your values construct. If you articulate the values, you need to bring them across into the employee experience. Now, how are they aligning with each other? What does that value look like in that employee moment? Your customer experience, how are we bringing that through? Leadership, what does that look like in the leadership construct? Your those elements of the culture, if you put in there, the most overused one is integrity. But now you'll get an organization saying integrity is our highest value. But when you look at their contract and the small print, everybody who does business with them is kind of getting bent over the counter in all the wrong ways. But then where's the integrity? And so it really is important to start to pull through those fancy words that you put there and to have a look at, what does that really look like? It's one thing to have the purpose or the value. How does it determine how we show up? And how do we consequence that if it doesn't? If what are our non-negotiables? What are our incorruptibles? We're having very hard conversations with a lot of our clients at the moment about exactly that, consequencing, because people behave really badly, but they walk on water. And we've recently had to have a conversation with the CEO about firing a person who is a very close personal friend of his. They own farms together. No one will ever know who we're talking about. So they own neighboring farms that they bought on their journeys up the corporate ladder. And but we've told him in no uncertain terms, you have to fire this guy, because this leader's got a very strong intention around the type of culture he's looking to build. His buddy, who's been in the business for over 30 years with him, is a tyrant. So while the CEO is building a wall, he's putting bricks into the wall, his buddy's pulling bricks out of the wall. And the problem is other people are watching this and going, oh, well, that's how this guy got successful. That's how he's so rich. That's how I'll behave. And the only thing is for him either to change or go, and he's already indicated he won't change. So he's got to go. Now, that's not a simple situation.
It's a big deal here. Because I always hire for attitude.
Completely.
I never hire for skills. Like,
what are you saying about all
No
that?
offense, guys.
No, nothing. No. But I mean, like, you can all be copied and outsourced. No. But Alexis always goes straight in for the like typical HR company, like, Todd, why did you leave your last job? And I'm like, what did you do on Saturday nights? You know what I mean? Where'd you go? Did you get drunk? How much did you drink? You know,
is that why you left your last job?
Yeah, exactly. But it's important for me for them to be themselves.
Totally.
But going back to your thing, it's like it's a hard one. It's a hard call to make. Because it's I can only speak for myself, but I'm imagining this would be like in this chap's, context also. It's like, if you have to let someone go for the sake of the greater good.
Yeah.
It's like, this guy is rich, so he'll be all right. So for me, it'd be like, listen, bro, you got to go. But if it's anyone, this hasn't happened yet, thank God. But if I had to let someone go, you know what I mean? Like, I suppose we did let one person go last year, but I felt bad about it because I'm like, fuck, it's this guy's livelihood, you know what I mean? And like, it's a hard one. And
but you have a responsibility to them.
To them, yeah.
And you have to fill your bus with people going in the same direction as you, essentially. And sometimes we make hiring mistakes, and you have to let people go, because if you're not enjoying it, they're probably not enjoying it either. But there's nothing to say that you can't help them find their next adventure kind of thing, send them on their way. Say, guys, if you sat down and had a one-on-one adult conversation, like, look, this isn't working for us. I'm not sure it's working for you either. And you'll probably find that it's not, if you guys are bashing heads all the time, no one's enjoying themselves. No one's having a great experience. So you say, listen, let's be adults. This isn't working. We're not enjoying it. We'll help you find your next adventure. Kind of thing. And that's where the art of good goodbyes comes in, because you never know. That person might go on a journey that maybe they don't have the skills that you need them to have now, Maybe they need to go and do something in their lives, to tick a box for themselves. You never know where your paths might cross again, and if you send them off on a good note as brand ambassadors, like I said just now, they go out there singing your praises. If you slam the door in their face and are like, peace, we're out, we want nothing more to do with you, they're certainly not singing your praises out there. And A players will bring A players. And if they might not be an A player now, but they might come back as an A player. And they might know other A players. And they're going to either tell people this is a place to be or stay away. And that's not really the story that you want being told out there about you, because employee experience starts before people even apply. It starts with the stories that they hear about what it's like to work in this organization.
And I just want to throw something. And Andy's telling it's a great theory, and it does work a lot. And then having had a long business experience, I'll also caveat that and say, and in a perfect world, that's how it goes. A lot of the time, it's not such a perfect world. And this person you're having the hard conversation with gets really upset with you, throws all the shit off your desk and rants and raves and doesn't leave so gracefully. It happens a lot because ego gets pushed. But you've got to have a go. What Andy's described is what you have to have a go at. You have to have a go at the adult conversation and prepare for it properly. Still even understanding this other person may not react the way you want them to react. And you still have to stick to your guns. We talk a lot about, you talk about recruiting. We talk a lot, and it's not actually in the book. It's new stuff we've started to unpack about when you hire, you're hiring for like. So values fit. There's certain fundamentals that we want people to be the same as us, have the same values constructs, and we want them, the same things to matter to them. Yep, those people want in our organization. But at the same time, you also want people that are going to be a value add that aren't the same as you, but that what they're going to bring is magic. So you're looking for value fit and you're looking for value add. A lot of organizations, a lot of leaders, when they interview people, they are looking for people the same as them. Some stuff same, some stuff not. And it's important to get the right stuff not. Because you get the wrong stuff not, it's going to take 2 or 3 days before you're going to arrive in your office and you're going to go, I hate this person.
And so when you get that right, when you get that shared purpose completely articulated, that should drive who are the human beings who are going to help us achieve this. And if you can get a clear articulation on what is the culture fit and the value fit that we need, and where can we have people adding to and augmenting that?
It's interesting because they do all the recruitment. Everyone here was referred by someone else or invited by someone else, which is great, eh?
Yeah.
See, I'm getting guns being pointed at each other. And the other thing that I'll say is, look how engaged they are. I don't even get this engagement on a normal business day, so you guys are rocking this. See, look how engaged this culture is. Winning team. Okay, cool. I just want to talk very quickly about skills, and then we'll wrap up. So, this whole thing came through this week at that conference, but it's a conversation that's just completely dominant. It's this thing around skills and your world around, sort of C-suite engagement and culture and stuff like that. It must be a burning question, what resources do I need to hire in a world that's changing so quickly, and this with automation being as threatening, I suppose, as it is, but to your point, also very present, right? How do we address that as leaders? I mean, we're talking about culture and skills and stuff. How do we bed that?
So for us, there are a couple of layers. The first one is basic humaning, and that's what this book is about. It's about the basic elements of connection, switching people on, switching them off. Because all the skill in the world isn't going to get you anywhere if somebody's gone. Then the next layer, and we're starting to do quite a lot of work and research around it at the moment, is how to identify and enable, grow, upskill the people that are in your organization that are attitude value adds, that already are historic value adds, or new ones coming in terms of what is it that they need to be equipped with to survive and thrive. And those are two important words. Survive first. That's the relevance thing. First, find our relevance, then shoot the lights out. In a world that's changing into a digitally driven world, there's so much literature out there in terms of where human beings are going to have relevance and where they aren't. Anything that a machine can be programmed to do, Well, humans not going to be required to do that anymore. This is the scary thing for a lot of people in every industry, whether it's manufacturing, whether it's banking, whether it's legals. There are things that a lot of the clever people said computers would never do, machines would never do, and they're now doing. They're doing them better than we do. If you're still fighting with a machine to retain your role, in the next year, 2, 3, you're gone. So those are a lot of the RELFs we're experiencing. Those RELFs need an attitude change. They need to start to understand, shit, I better upskill myself. And upskill means 2 things. First, I need to work on my own attitude and my own availability to the fact that the world is changing. Become available to learning new things. And secondly, I need to start accessing more of my own empathy. I need to start tapping into the things that machines are not going to be able to do. Because that really is where I'm not going into the deep science around it, but we need to, as human beings, all become very aware of what is it that I will still be able to do that a machine will not be able to do. And as leaders and as organizations, we've got to be creating platforms, environments, intention, learning journeys, where that becomes an ongoing conversation. Otherwise, what's going to happen is we're going to be stuck with people in our organizations that are switched off, that are fearful and panicked. Their brains are going to shut down. We're getting very little contribution out of them. And the world is changing and our business is not changing with it.
And I think, so on top of the empathy and the deeply human side of things, which is where the world is going, that's where what we're going to need more and more from human beings. Another piece of advice I'd give to people is go and learn how the tech works. Don't go deep, but just understand, if we are living in a world that is driven by technology, if you have no understanding of how coding works, how algorithms work, what deep learning is, what machine learning is, what data science is, that's going to be what's driving our world, especially the world of work. And if you don't understand at least the basics of it, you're going to be living in a world that you do not understand. And if you have you're basically living with a blindfold on. And there's so many resources out there to just get the basics, so you know what's coming at you, how it works, how it might impact you, and how you can leverage it for success for yourself.
Just a quick story. When they launched ATMs, bank ATMs, all the tellers were like, "Oh no, the ATMs are going to take all of our jobs," and all it actually did was free their time up to focus on other things like cross-selling, upselling, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. So automation, yes, it's not going to stop. I mean, the car industry's been automating itself for 50 fucking years now. Yeah. And so, yes, it's real, but all that does, it actually gives you opportunities to do other things. I mean, it's a double-edged sword also, because if you don't have the skills, like a truck driver is not going to be able to code. Do you know what I mean? When automated trucks arrive, you know what I'm saying?
Sure. But the thing is, there's also the whole school of thought that says the jobs that, I think it's saying like 50% of the jobs that will exist in 2030, which isn't that far away, don't exist yet. And so to what you were saying about the car industry and the ATMs, rather, the bank tellers, think of nursing. How much of a nurse's time is spent fetching medication, filling in files, and taking vital stats? There's almost no time for them to look at you and go, "Mr. Patient, how are you feeling?" There's no time for that human moment. And all the research shows is patients who feel that they're being treated like human beings and being engaged like human beings heal exponentially faster. So they've actually got a robot. His name is Terapia at this point, and it's been deployed in some US hospitals. And he fetches the medicines. He can take the vital stats. So the nurse can actually do the human work of connecting with the patient to understand, how are you, Mr. Human Being, doing?
It'd be quite funny if you woke up from like a car accident and there was this robot taking your blood pressure. Yeah.
Especially, imagine if you woke up from a coma. You fell into your coma a few years ago.
For 10 years, you wake up.
Yeah. Cool. Let's wrap up, guys. Why did you write this book? Why? Like, everyone's talking about change and technology, but for you guys as authors and as thought leaders in this space, what's the why?
I think people don't know what they don't know. And for the most part, it's never intentional that we're creating poor experiences for the people in our businesses. We just have no idea how to do it better. And until now, there hasn't been a framework to kind of go, okay, these are the things I need to be paying attention to. And, we see a lot of businesses wanting to get this stuff right, but not really having a guide on how to do that?
Yeah, my why was I've been trying to get a lot of what's been in my head onto paper for a long time, and it's been hard. This was the right book to write at the right time, the right way, the way we wrote it as a collaborative, because again, we're talking about humans connecting, collaborating. But for me, my vision actually is that I firmly believe, and obviously I carry some bias, that book belongs on every single desk of every human being who wakes up in the morning to go and engage with other human beings. And that's what I'd like to achieve. And we're starting to see that. We're starting to have organizations where somebody picked the book up and read it and said, hold on, I need everyone to have one of these. And so for me, I'd like that to become viral, that becomes the message inside organizations, that we start to get a bank phoning and saying, we need 5,000 of these delivered now. Can we get them? Because it really should be on everybody's desk. Everybody is creating moments for everybody else constantly. The quality of all of our lives is based on the quality of the moments we create for other people and ourselves.
Incredible. You know, they say writing a book is the best business card you'll ever have. So you guys have been
bloody
awesome.
well hope so.
Yeah. I don't know. Mine's got nothing to do about business. Well, you know what I mean? I'm not going to go and build an empire like you guys are going to do. But anyway, we'll see. Thanks for being on the show, guys.
Thanks
for having us.
Cheers.
Cheers.